Ladies and gentlemen, how's everybody doing today?
Good.
Good.
Already been long.
It's been what? Long? A long day? Yeah, I feel you on that. It's I'm ready. I'm ready for this to be over with. I'm ready for the semester to be over with, and believe it or not, it's going to be here before we know it. Real quickly, I just kind of want to make sure that we kind of throw this out there. I know a lot of you have already picked up your supplies, and you've got those things for next week. If you haven't done that, or if you need me to kind of make some special arrangements if you can't get to Fresno State, shoot me an email, let me know. If you're going to come by, let me know too. If you haven't picked up yet, just let me know and give me a general time. That way I'm not kind of sitting here. I try to, I'm trying to get other things done, but also kind of be here. So I might kind of pop in and out a little bit, but I'm pretty much here all day, for the most part. So if you haven't picked up those things, I'll be here tomorrow, pretty much all day. I've got a lab in the morning that we're going to do at like 8. But after that, like 9 o'clock, I'm going to be here, just kind of working on the shop, getting things done around here. So, but just shoot me an email, let me know like when you are here so that if I do run out real quick, if I've got to, go run some errands or do some things, I'm not, leaving you, waiting out here. So just, and you can still pick them up next week as well. But we need to have them by next Thursday, because next Thursday, I think I've decided we're going to do the plumbing next Thursday. And so there's going to be 2 bags that you're going to get, one with electrical stuff, one with plumbing. And I need to let this dude in here. So, we're going to do the plumbing next week, and then we're going to have Thanksgiving break. We won't have, we won't meet then. And then we'll do, the next week is going to be the electrical. And then we have dead days or consultation days after that. So we've only got, after today, there's only 2 other labs that we're going to do. And those are going to be the stuff that we've got to collect. So we just got to make sure we try to get those things. I've got a little bit more than half of them that are out. So there's still, I think 18 people that need to pick up. So hopefully we're doing pretty good getting them all out. And we got a week. We still got a week to get them out. So, but just don't forget about that, and then let me know when you are going to come by if you haven't done that. Anything else? Any questions on that stuff? All right. If you do, just email me. If you need anything, if you have questions, email me, and I can work with you guys on that to help you out with that. So today is, well, I posted some videos on like woodworking and different things like that. Last week I told you guys about an extra credit opportunity to build either the step stool or the bar stool that we would normally build in person, to actually build that in Google SketchUp. And so I kind of wanted to, kind of focus maybe a little bit more on that. But if you guys have questions on other things, we can definitely deal with that. If you want to see some things, if you're kind of like, hey, I'm kind of thinking about maybe doing it, I can maybe show you some different things in Google SketchUp that might help you. If you have worked on that and maybe you're like at a stopping point where you're like, I can't figure this out, or I don't know what's going on, just kind of help you out, a little bit with that. So a little bit kind of question, answer, kind of back and forth type stuff to see if we can help you out along the way. Has anybody started doing that? Has anybody decided that they want to? It's an extra credit opportunity, obviously. Some of it might be a little bit involved. That's why I didn't want to actually force you guys to have to do it, because there's a lot of different parts and pieces in there. Anybody? Do you guys want me to maybe show you a couple things with that? So that way, if you haven't decided, or if you're like, hey, maybe I can do this, maybe kind of demonstrate a little bit of, how we would kind of go about building these things in Google SketchUp.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that sounds good. It's been a while.
Yeah. That's kind of why I wanted to kind of focus a little bit today. Not that, I expect you guys to have these things done, but give you guys an example. I'm going to do, if you guys don't mind, let me, I probably should share this screen here. So I'm going to kind of focus on the step stool. It doesn't matter which one you build. I'm just picking this one because we did the video on the bar stool there. A lot of similar concepts, a lot of similar things. But things that I'll show you here are going to be very similar to the other one. Some of them might be almost exactly the same. So the biggest thing with this, and we just notice how I have this build here, and I've got like all the pieces. It's like the step stool as it's like combined together. Okay. But basically we have all these different pieces, and we really just need to kind of focus on building those pieces. And there's a couple things I'm going to tell you in here today that's going to make life maybe a little bit easier, because some of this stuff you may not understand. If you've watched the videos, hopefully you have done those and you've seen that build, because we do kind of talk about like the angle right here, this 412 angle. We talk about what that is, but I'm going to give you guys a little bit more information on that as far as building it, because it's a little bit different than if we're doing it like in person, or if we're using like a framing square to get that angle. But essentially what we want to do is just kind of build a piece and kind of build this out. And so doesn't really matter where you start. I'm going to start with this little top piece right here, and then we're just going to build, everything kind of down, underneath that. So this one is just pretty easy, right? We've got a rectangle, and then we've got like a hole that's in the center. And I may not show you all these dimensions. I mean, you guys have access to this stuff. But what I'm more concerned with is not, I want you to have the right dimensions, obviously. And when you're building this, you can kind of go back and forth with these things. So that's not, a big deal, but it's more of like how we're going to go about that process and how we're going to do that. Question? Or is that one of the students coming in? Okay. So I'm going to have the dimensions. They're going to be up, but I'm just, for the sake of like time, without having to like sit there and be like, okay, we've got to make sure that we, get all these dimensions going back and forth. We're just going to kind of build it from there. So probably the best thing to orient yourself, right? Grab that orbit tool. If you remember, we can hit shift when we're in this orbit tool, and we can get this little hand where it'll kind of shift this aside. We can orient this. I prefer to kind of have it like a top view. So I'm just kind of like getting that stuff situated. Now on the top of our step stool, we have a rectangle, and we want that rectangle to be 5 inches by 14 inches. So we're going to draw this rectangle. We're going to quickly click this, stretch this in our right direction. We're not holding on to our mouse, okay, if you remember that. And this thing is going to be automatically going feet and inches, because that's the template that I selected. So I can just simply put in 5. I don't need to put the inch marks, comma. And I think I'm pretty sure we decided that you don't have to put a space. So if I wanted a 5 by 14 square, I could do 5, 14. It's going to automatically put this into inches. And you can see we've got that square there. I'm going to hit the O button on my keyboard to quickly get into the orbit function. And now I've got something that's kind of right here. So this is kind of the start of our top piece. Now, how you do this could be, you can kind of vary a little bit. You can stretch this thing out and make it a 3-dimensional object right now. Or you can, try to cut out that little circular part, that little handle portion on this top step right there. Doesn't matter which way you do that. It may be a little bit easier to build it in the flat position like this. And so that's kind of what we're going to do. When you're designing these things and you're putting them together, it's important that you have like your tape measure tool. And so you can hit T for tape measure, or you can kind of go down here and you can see it's got a tape measure. These are going to create grid points, and they're not going to actually be lines. Okay. They're just simply going to be marking points. So if you want to click your mouse, it'll automatically go into that. So if I wanted to click it here, and if I wanted to draw a line, notice how it hits that intersection. I could draw a line up. Okay. And we've done that. If you guys remember that when we did that dustpan, it's really the same exact process, but we're going to go escape. Come on. All right. Get out of there. We're going to go Control Z to undo those lines, because we don't want that. Now this handle is going to be, 5 inches, from the sides. Sorry, it's got to be 5 inches wide. We want this thing in the direct center. So the nice thing with this little grid points that we have here, we can grab this little tape measure, and we know this thing is 14 inches here. So we're going to type in 7 to get our 7 inches there. We know it's 5 inches here. Half of 5 inches is 2.5. So I'm just going to stretch those two things in that direction. And I'm going to get 2.5 here. That's going to kind of help us out. Now we've got this little center point. We want to make sure that we have these things, and we want this thing to be 5 inches in total length. And so to do this, okay, we want to measure 2.5 one way. We want to measure 2.5 the other way. But there's a little bit of a complication in the fact that we have a circle that's going to be here. And we want that circle to be the very outside edge. So to be able to do this, what we're going to actually do is we're just going to put a 2-inch measurement tool right there. And you'll notice it creates like a little knob right there. Okay, it's got like a little end point. And I'll explain why we're going to do that in just a second. So we'll go 2 inches in the other direction. You can kind of see this right here. Right now, that dimension is going to be 4 inches. Okay. The width of this handle needs to be 1 inch wide. So what that means is that when we draw a circle, we're going to draw the circle from the center. Okay. It's going to draw this out and it's going to extend this out a 1/2 inch this way and 1/2 inch that way and a 1/2 inch that way. And it's also going to extend it a 1/2 inch this way, right? But what that's going to do is that's going to give us our 1 inch width. And then it's also going to add a 1/2 inch here. And the same thing's going to happen here. It's going to be a 1/2 inch. And so the total length from one end to the other is going to be 5 inches. This is the same stuff that we would do, as we're laying this stuff out on a piece of wood. This is exactly the same process that we would do. We're just doing it on a computer as opposed to anything else. So I'm going to hit the C on my keyboard to get my circle tool. I can stretch this thing out. And these things measure the diameter. So we want a 1 inch circle. They measure the radius. We want a 1 inch diameter circle. So we're going to put a 1/2 inch. So we're going to go 0.5 on there. And you'll notice we get a little circle there. We're going to do the same thing on this side. We'll get 0.5 right there. And now we've got kind of the portion of our handle. All we got to do now is just draw a line from the very top right here to the very top right there. And then we can kind of delete some of these things. We'll do the same thing on the bottom. So I'm going to hit L for my line tool. You can grab the little pencil right there. And then all we're going to do is just draw a line that connects those 2 points together. Same thing right there and right there. Now we've got these things. We want to just simply erase that center portion. So we grab my eraser tool. I can hit E to do that. We've got those things there. And now spacebar will get you back to your selection tool. Notice I can select that and I can select this as 2 separate pieces now. This has kind of joined those things up. I'm going to select that center portion. I'm just going to delete that. And I'm just going to erase these measurement marks here just to get rid of those things. Now, the last thing I need to do is my push-pull, which is, you can find this right here. You can also hit P for push-pull. And then you can, I don't want to do that. Quickly click on that, and you can kind of raise this thing up. All of these boards, every thickness of these boards is going to be 3/4 of an inch thick. So we can type in 3/4. Down there, we can hit enter. And you'll notice if we kind of orbit around, you'll notice that we now have that little top piece that's basically kind of situated here. Okay, so you've got that top piece that's created. We can color this. I don't know if I've shown you guys how to color these things at all, but we can color these things if you want to. It's not, incredibly necessary, but it does kind of dress it up a little bit. And what we're going to do is go to our little bucket right here. We can find different materials if we want. So if we go over to the little search thing right there, if this is going to be a woodworking project, we would obviously want to have it as wood. And you can kind of select, the piece that you want. If you like this color, you can click on that and you can paint those things. And you can go around and you can hit all. Why is my computer not working? Naturally. So we did a wood cherry right there. There should be a way. I forget on this online version, there's a way that we can adjust the material a little bit. But I'm not seeing it right now. My computer does not want to run. It is not working well for me. Okay, there we go. So we can kind of paint that. And you'll notice it's kind of a little bit fuzzy. There is a way to do this. Let's see. No, I don't want to do that. Okay, I'm not worried about that. I'll have to figure this thing out. But if you want to color, you can color these things any color. You can click on all these things here and you can do that. Or if you want, before we get to the step of painting, we're getting our selection tool. And this is kind of an important aspect. If you're building these things, you're kind of building them like a piece at a time. And then what you want to do is kind of, put them all kind of together so we can kind of orient them. So if you notice, I just kind of triple click this. Notice how it highlights everything. Not a double click. I don't want to just grab one surface right here. I want to triple click so that way I get everything in this. You can go ahead and right click. You can make this a component. I'm going to label this the top step because that's what it is. I hit enter. And now this piece is one united piece. You can click into here. Notice how you get this little dotted line box. You can still edit and modify this if you need to. But if I put another piece on top of this, it's not going to kind of stick them and glue them together. I think I've shown you guys that, but just to kind of reiterate that stuff again. If you like a different color, right, you can kind of change these things. You can make them whatever color you want. Completely up to you on how you want to handle that stuff. But anyway, we'll just leave it like that. We've got that little piece there. Now the color just kind of makes it, just kind of dresses it up a little bit. Now there's a couple of things with your legs, and these things are going to be a little bit different, okay? Because that's probably the next thing that maybe we want to build, in here is our legs. And you'll notice on these legs, if I can bring this thing back into here, that's not the right thing. Go away. So on these legs, they're 17 inches. You'll notice there's an angle. The angle on these things is a 412. If you don't know that, you can look up into right here, leg angles 412. Now, what a 412 means, okay, and I hope that you guys have watched the video because it does kind of explain that. But 412 essentially is what we determine rise over run. If you think from like a math class, it basically is saying that for every 12 inches you go across, you're going to rise up 4 inches. And this all has to do with building rafters and things like that. And that's kind of how we get those angles. So the purpose of that is so that way we can teach you how to, use a framing square properly. Again, in the woodworking video, it shows you that, it demonstrates that. If you haven't watched that, watch that because it's going to explain that and you're going to be able to see, what I'm talking about. But for, a 412, or if it's the bar stool, it's a 212, it doesn't matter. It's really kind of, it's the same process on how we do that. But the angle is obviously going to be a little bit different, okay? But when you think about rise over run, you're basically saying for every 12 inches we go over, we're going to rise up 4 inches. And we could do the math and we could try to figure this out. But I'm just going to kind of tell you that if it's a 212, we're going to do a 10-degree angle. And if it's a 412, it's going to be a 15-degree angle. Those are roughly, close to what the angles are going to be on these pieces. So that's going to be kind of important. We want these legs to be 17 inches on the angle, and we want these things to be a parallelogram. Okay, a parallelogram is basically a tilted rectangle. Okay, we don't want a trapezoid, right? We want a parallelogram, so we want to make sure that we can see this angle is going to match up, with that angle right there. So that's kind of some important things. We're going to be 3.5 inches wide on these things as well. Now you could build these things in place, or we can just kind of stop and we can kind of get these things oriented later. So I'm just going to kind of build them separate here, and then I'll show you how we can modify them. Oh, one other thing on these legs. There are 2 front legs that are a mirror image of each other to accept this little piece right there. You'll notice we have a little notch out of that leg. And then the 2 back legs are going to have that little dovetail that's going to be in those things. So those ones are going to be identical. The 2 front legs are going to be a mirror image of itself. But we can save ourselves a lot of time. And it's the same thing with the bar stool if you decide to do that. You can save yourself a lot of time by building these things. So we know we want to be 17 inches. When we go to cut these boards, because when you go to cut the angles, they're going to be a little bit smaller. So we actually want to cut these things to 3.5 by 19 inches. And so we're going to do the same thing in this Google SketchUp. We're going to grab a rectangle. I'm going to hit R for rectangle. I'm going to grab this leg and I'm just going to stretch those things out. I know I want to be 3.5 inches. And I want to be 19. We're going to trim these things down, a little bit here. So not going to matter too much. I'll show you kind of another way. We can raise this thing up to where we have that 3/4 inch right now. And then we can kind of get our angles here built in. And to get our angles, what we need to go is down here, not that one. There we go. Go down the little tape measure there. You're going to see it's a protractor. So now we've got a protractor here. What we're going to do is we're going to click on that corner. Notice how it's kind of, sits there and kind of is oriented there. We're going to click up there. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to go, look at it, snapping to a 15-degree angle. We'll just type in 15. We're going to hit enter. What we want to do is we want to do the same thing on this. But first, we want to grab our tape measure tool. And we want to measure 17 inches right here because it's got to be 17 inches on the angle. You notice we've got this little point right here that it gives us. We're going to go back to our little protractor tool. We're going to click right here. We're going to stay perpendicular. We're going to go that way, and then we're going to type in, again, that 15-degree angle, and we're going to hit enter. That's going to give us our 17 inches on the angle there that we need. We can now take our line tool. We can draw these things across. We'll do the same thing on this side, clicking in both spots. And like I said on the other one, you could have raised it up and then done it, or do all the layout work and then just raise it up. On this one, to basically erase these lines, essentially we're just going to take that push-pull again. So I hit P to get push-pull, and I'm just going to drop this thing down to 0. And notice how it erases that. We're going to do the same thing right here where we just kind of, drop that thing down. And now if you look at this, we've got a little angle right there. That's kind of the base leg that we have, okay? Now, if we wanted to, what we could do with this to save you guys a little bit of time, I'm going to erase these 2 lines right there. What we can do with this, grab our selection tool. We can grab that whole thing and we can go just like a standard Word program or something. We can say Control C to copy it and then Control V to paste it. And you'll notice now that I got 2 copies, I'm just going to set that thing right there. So the nice thing with this is I've got 2 copies of these things. This is exactly, kind of what we want. This is what we're looking for. On the back side of one of these things, we'll do one leg here. We'll do this leg. We're going to put this leg, it's going to be the dovetail, and we're going to need 2 of these things. So to save yourself some time, you're basically going to do this once. You don't have to do this. If you do the bar stool, all 4 legs are identical to each other. So you do one, and then you can simply just copy them, across. With this one, there's 2 different legs. One, like I said, one is not necessarily harder than the other. They both have, some differences to them. But let's say I don't really like the orientation on this thing. So what I'm going to do is take this little move tool here. I'm going to go rotate. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually I want to try to get it on this green axis right here. So see how I can kind of hover here? I'm not going to click there. I'm just going to hold it there to where it's got my green. Right here, see how it's kind of blue? What I want to do is flip this thing and I want to rotate this up. Maybe it's probably best to just show you. So I'm going to take this right here. I'm going to go hold shift. I'm not clicking there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this little top piece right there. Oh, I got to select this whole thing. Let me get out of here. All right, let me select that whole thing there. And then I'm going to hit rotate. No, that's rectangle. I don't know what my rotate key is. I'm just going to go to this thing. I'm going to go to rotate. So notice I got that whole thing selected. I'm going to go over to this little piece right here where it's going to be on that green axis. I'm going to hold shift. I'm going to grab this top corner. I'm going to click right there in that top corner. I'll click on this red axis, and then now I can just kind of flip this piece up right here. So now we've got that piece that's there that's a little bit, oriented maybe a little bit better. On this piece, again, without really going, too much into dimensions, we're going to create that little dovetail. And so from this point up, we got to have 2 inches. No, we got to have 3 inches up. Come on. Doesn't want to grab because I'm too far away. Okay. So we want to be 3 inches up from the bottom. And then we're going to be 2 inches up from there. I want a line, so I'm just going to redo this thing. See how I redo it and I get a line? I don't know why it does that. It just does. So these pieces now, we're going to have, and I guess these things aren't necessarily a mirror. These ones got to be mirror image of themselves too. Oh, whoa. What did I do? I lost my spot. Okay. So on these things, we want this angle to kind of come down. And on this thing, we want to measure 3/4 of an inch down, and we're going to measure a 1/2 inch in. So we're simply going to do that right now. We'll measure a 1/2 inch. It kind of gives it to us. 1/2 inch, we'll measure those things in. I'm going to take my line tool. I'm going to draw a line from there to there. I'm going to draw a line from there to there. And then I should be able to drop this thing. And this thing needs to fit a 3/4 inch board because you've got that one piece that's going to go in there, that dovetail. So we're going to drop this thing down 3/4 of an inch. It's going to cut that stuff out. We'll go my orbit tool so that way you guys can see. And you'll notice we've got that portion of that dovetail that's right there. Now, I did tell you that they're a copy of each other, but they are not. The other leg that we're going to do is going to have to be opposite of this. And so what we can do if you want, we can kind of copy this thing here. We can go Control C, Control V. Notice we've got another copy of this thing right here. And then all I'm going to do right here, I'm going to leave this thing probably the same. I might actually move this and get it right on that line there. Okay. So I can get it right on that line. I don't want to do that. We're going to push pull. We're going to lift this thing up to the top. And then we want these angles to be going in the opposite direction. Okay. So we don't want them going in that direction there. So we're just going to go opposite of them. So I'm just going to erase those lines here. And instead of measuring on this side, I'll just measure on this side. We'll go a 1/2 inch there. We'll go a 1/2 inch there. And then we can just draw our line to kind of go across. And the same thing, we'll just grab our push pull. We'll drop this thing down 3/4 of an inch. And now we've got both of those pieces there. This one really needs to be moved over on that side. And that's a little bit more of how those things are going to be oriented. Probably an important thing to do with this is to take this thing. We want to make sure we make them components because if we touch, they're going to do this. So we'll go back leg number 1. And now that's a component. We're going to select this one. We'll do the same thing, but we're going to label that back leg number 2. So those things are done there. We've got this piece here. We're going to move this one out. We're going to get this thing kind of oriented. Now on this piece right here, what we've got to do is we need to create this little notch that comes out right here. So that little notch, we need to notch it for that little step. So to do this, this thing needs to be in the middle. So if we have this step, we should have, let's go from the edge here. We should have 17 inches right there. 8.5. This thing's kind of nice because it goes right to the center there. So we want to have that center. And then what we're going to do is we're going to measure. I'm going to zoom in. This board we want to be in the center. And if it's a 3/4 inch board, we want to go 1/2 of 3/4. And 1/2 of 3/4 is going to be 3/8. So what we're going to do is from this point, we're going to measure up 3/8. Why is it not doing that? Hold on. It's not wanting to work with me right now. Let's orient ourselves maybe a little bit better here. Let's try this again. Let's create a line so that way we can see this. So 8.5 is 1/2 of 17. So we've got that. There we go. That looks better. We want to be 3/8 of an inch on one side, 3/8 of an inch on the other side. Now that we've got those things kind of marked, now we can get ourselves oriented a little bit better here for this top piece. So this step, gosh dang it, what the heck is going on? I cannot control this thing right now. Okay, there we go. We want that angle not to go straight across. We want that to be at that same angle that we have here. And so I could just take and Control C and copy this little piece right here. And you'll notice I can just grab that end and I should be able to, why is it not doing that? Okay. Okay. That's not going to work. I thought I was going to make life a little bit easier, but that's okay. We can go back to this protractor tool, grab it right there on that first line, stretch it to here, go 15 degrees. That's going to give us our same angle. We'll do the same thing right here. Got to make sure you stretch it across. So you want to be on that red axis. In this case, stretch it in the direction, go 15. We can now draw our lines just like normal. Boom, boom. And then the only other thing that we need to do is the depth of this. And we want to go down half the thickness of the board. Half the thickness of that board is going to be 3/8 of an inch. So you can grab those pieces that we created. You can stretch this down. We don't want to go all the way. We want to go half. So we're going to take 3/8 of an inch. That's half of 3/8 or half of 3/4. And you'll notice we've got our little piece right there that's kind of situated. We'll do the same thing for the sake of time. I think, I've got enough pieces. Obviously, the angle on the other side is going to be opposite of that. And what we may be able to do is go Control C. Maybe we can make a copy of this and just make a quick modification to it. So that's my piece there. On the other one, you want this piece to be out and that piece to be up. And so maybe what we can do is grab this thing and let's grab this thing. Let's move this thing up. We're going to move it up 3/4 of an inch. So that way we have those marks already there. And we'll go ahead and just draw these lines there again. Oh, it didn't click. Come on. They don't want to do it for me. Okay. There we go. All right, now we got those lines drawn on there. We're just going to bring this to the top. We can erase these two lines because we don't need those things anymore. And now we'll grab this one and we'll go 3/8 of an inch. So now we've got that. I personally don't like to have a bunch of lines on these things. So I tend to just kind of erase them when I'm done with them because they can get annoying. So now we've got these pieces here. What we need to do is we need to kind of orient these things. We're going to flip this one. We're going to do that little rotate function on this one so we can have it facing up. So we'll do that same thing. It's important that I get that little green axis there. Let's make this a leg. Actually, let's make that a component first. Let's go front leg. Number 1. It doesn't matter what you name these things, but making them a component is one of the biggest issues I had when I first started using this program. And I didn't use them. I didn't make these things. So now we've got that. Let's try to rotate this thing a little bit here. Doesn't really want to grab where we want. So we'll go here. We'll go Shift. We can then grab this thing. We're going to rotate this thing all the way around. So we're going to go on the red axis here. And we're just going to make sure that we're on the red axis again right there. And that's going to give us these two kind of flat pieces right there. Now we want to do the same thing with these pieces here. Maybe we'll orient ourselves this way. These pieces, to line these things up, we want to lay these pieces down flat again. So we're going to take these, we're going to rotate them, do the same thing. We're going to hold Shift. We can grab probably this bottom corner right here. Click it there, and then it'll drop. Now, if these things touch, make sure it's on the blue axis. If they touch, it's not that big of a deal. Because we've made these things components, they can kind of touch. We can take this thing and grab it. We can move it. We can put it inside of it, but then we can also move it, and it's not going to attach them together because they are separate components now, the way that we have this thing designed. So the only other thing that we got to do is basically just move this thing on top. And what we want to do is just grab this little corner right there, and we're just going to raise it on top of that corner right there. and we'll connect these things together. We want this corner to be here. So for us to do that, we go back to that rotation tool. And we want it to rotate and pivot on this thing. I don't need to hold shift because I'm on that blue axis, and that's going to cause this thing to shift. And so what we'll do is we'll just kind of click it. Actually, let me start over. Go down at this very bottom right here. This is going to make life really easy for you. And then we can go right to here, and then we can simply just pull this piece. So I clicked in the corner there, clicked right there, and I'm going to put it right up in here, and I'm going to click those things together. Now I've got those pieces, they're together. We would obviously do the same thing with the other side there. What I can do, and this is kind of a cool thing, is I can hit shift, and I can select both of these, and I can say make this a component, and I can go side 1 if I wanted. So now those legs, if I grab these, notice how they move together. So I basically combine those things and I've joined them. I can still go through and I can still edit this leg and I can edit this leg. Okay. I can do all those things separately, but it makes my life a little bit easier. Essentially what we want to do here, okay, we're going to probably rotate it. We want these things, we want that board to be on top of these. And so what we'll probably do is we're going to rotate these things again. Make sure we're on that red axis. So we hold that. We go there. We'll stretch this thing on that green axis. And then we'll make sure we're on that blue axis. Oh, dang it. I was inside of my piece there. Okay. See how I just grabbed one of them? Good example. Let's see. Rotate tool. We'll just select that thing. Then we'll go rotate. Actually, you know what would be easier? Notice how we're kind of like at an angle on this whole thing. It might make more sense for us to rotate them to where they are flat. So we could bring them over there on that red axis. That's going to make more sense there. So now we're kind of parallel with these things. We'll select that thing again. We'll do the rotate tool. Get us on that red axis, hold shift, click it there. I did that wrong. There we go. We'll make sure we're on that green axis. And then we want to make sure we're on that blue axis. Oop, was it right there? Even though it may look funky and it may look like it's not there, it is. And now we should be able to just take this thing and we just kind of move this thing over. Sometimes you got to orient it a couple times. And you change that position. Now we want this thing to be in the center. So I might just grab the midpoint of that thing. It's going to kind of select and kind of grab that midpoint right there. And you'll notice we've got that one side of that leg that's going to be there. You can, if you make these things as a component, like I said, you can, paint these things. So if you're like, hey, I want these things to be painted, you can paint them. If you want to separate the different pieces, you can do that as well and color them different colors. But hopefully that gives you guys a little bit of an idea of kind of what we need to do. On these pieces, once you get the other leg together, and this is kind of what I would recommend, pretty much the same thing if you do the bar stool as well. Once you get these things in there, you can simply just kind of draw a rectangle to kind of fill in this back spot. You can draw one to fill in those things as well for the step. And then you can have, and then pretty much everything's going to be together at that point. Yeah, I think that's probably enough information. Unless you guys have questions or if you guys want to see something else, orienting those pieces, it's really just the same exact thing that I did, before. Maybe I'll show you this back piece here. Maybe we'll do that. So on this one, we want a triangle, we're going to grab our tape measure tool. Get it to where we're oriented right. Okay, we're going to grab our tape measure tool. If I wanted to do this, right, I could do my 3 inches up. I could do my 2 inches from here. That's wrong. I want to make sure that I'm on. See how it turns purple? That means I'm perpendicular. Now see how it's lined up with that line? It was off on that the last time. And then we're going to go 2 inches there. That's going to ensure that those things are laying up against that leg. You can see that right there. We're going to draw a rectangle here. And this rectangle, sometimes the rectangles kind of have issues on the angles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line. You'll notice I'm just drawing this thing right here. I'm going to follow this line here. These things need to be 12.5 inches. We're going to do the same thing right here. We're going to go 12.5 inches. And then we can kind of connect these 2 points together. Notice we've got like a full piece now. On these ones, and I put the wrong leg. This angle should go the other direction. It should come down right there. But we can edit this actually. And that's actually a good thing because I can show you that. So I grabbed the wrong leg there. This one actually needs to be over on the other side. And actually what we may do is maybe just move this thing over. Nope. Let's go explode. So we went explode. So now I don't have that as a component anymore. They're separate from each other. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna move this thing right on that end there. I feel like this thing is tilted just a little bit. We are not exactly square on this thing. Anyway, we'll get this stuff back in here. I'll show you kind of this. So now this is on this side. To cut this piece out, you could simply just take this. We want to make sure we're not clicked on that. We want to be clicked on this piece right here. We can simply just kind of trace these things out right there. And then we can select these pieces and we can delete those pieces out. If you did that on like both sides, you could do that. And now what we want to do is kind of push pull. We want this thing to be 3/4 of an inch. We can fill in that gap right there. And you can see if we were to make this a component here, let's say back support, you could take this piece and we can move this piece out and you'll notice it's got the cuts and everything that's there. If you want to put it back together, you can kind of do these things. It likes to snap to those points there and we can get that stuff kind of situated. Obviously my angle, when I made this thing, you can see we've got a little bit of an angle here and we don't necessarily want that angle. And so we can adjust this thing. If I grab this and hold control and grab that one, I can rotate these things to where they are better. We want to make sure we are on this red axis. Otherwise it starts tilting in funky angles and stuff. I think we just moved just a little bit. Okay, so now we've got that. You can see how it's still, there's a little bit of an overlap here. So we're going to get this thing fixed. We're going to go right here on this red axis. That's going to determine which direction we're tilting. Okay, hold shift and then grab it. Grab the top piece. Grab that bottom piece. Actually, you know what? That didn't work. Sometimes this one is pretty dang close to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to click it there. We're going to click on the top of that thing. And we're really going to kind of bend this thing quite a bit. And then what we're going to do is we're going to repeat that. We're going to grab that little corner there, come up to here, and then just until it's flat. So now those pieces, you know, are oriented a little bit. I do need to take this thing and I need to move it over 3/4 of an inch to fit that board. So I can just slide it and go 3/4. And I can take my other piece there and I can move that stuff into there. So just kind of like moving pieces, obviously put the other leg right there, get those ones oriented, cut that stuff out, put the step stool in there. What questions do you guys have? I know I went through some of that stuff pretty quickly, but I did record this so you guys can kind of look back at this and you can slow it down. You can repeat these things. But we've basically built, you know, this whole stool. We've got only a couple pieces left to do on here. But what questions do you guys have?
I don't have a question of like what you did, but when I went to go get the step stool, like the like directions that you put on, mine doesn't have like the picture on the second page with all the measurements. I don't know if it's just how my computer downloaded it. Or...
It could be that it doesn't have a PDF version of that. I don't think I did. I put it. I don't think I put a PDF version. I think I just did the Word version. And so let me see. Let me go to. Let me go to your guys's what you call it, Canvas. Yeah, I didn't put those. That's all just a Word document. Okay, so I'm just going to upload. I'll put it in this week right here. I'll make PDF versions of those things and I'll upload those to make sure, because sometimes pictures, they just don't transfer well from one program to another, or even if it's like an older version of Word, you know, versus a newer version, you know, that can kind of sometimes mess things up and pictures don't transfer very easily over. So I will make a PDF version of those things and I will upload them into this week's thing. I'll probably maybe even put them in last week's as well. So that way you can see those things and you can see the pictures, because the pictures are really important to be able to tell the dimensions of stuff. Without those, you can't make this thing. So
thank you.
Mm-hmm. Does anybody have any other questions? Stop this share real quick here. All right, if you guys don't have anything, just remember we got to pick up the supplies. Just kind of schedule that with me. Just let me know when you're going to come. If you can, if you got issues, you have something going on, and for some reason you can't, let me know, and I'll work with you on how we can get those materials to you another way. So if you guys don't have anything else, I'll go ahead and end